Welcome back to 10-Minute Prophecy. We hope that you have learned a lot so far. So now we're going to go through the prophecy of Daniel chapter 8. Now, Daniel chapter 8 is also connected with Daniel chapter 9. Also, this prophecy magnifies Daniel chapter 7, which magnifies Daniel chapter 2. Can you see that Daniel chapter 2 is the framework in which all the prophecies, including Revelation, are based on? You'll see the connection when we get to Revelation. And so let's begin. The prophecy starts out with Daniel referencing the historical time in which he got the vision. With this information, we can pinpoint the time in history in which the vision was given. Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. So when we look in history, the 1st year of Belshazzar's reign was 540 BC, and his 3rd year was 538 BC. We now know the time of the vision and when it was revealed. Verse 2 says, And I saw in the vision, now it was so that when I saw, I was in Shushan the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in the vision, and I was by the river Ulai. So here Daniel gives his physical location in the Babylonian kingdom. He was in Shushan, likely because it was where one of the palaces of the king was, as well as where Daniel conducted the business of the kingdom, being one of the ministers of the state. Verse 3 and 4 starts the vision. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, and no beasts could stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and magnified himself. Did you notice any familiar characteristics to an animal in Daniel chapter 7? We see that it is similar to the bear. The ram has 2 horns, and one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. Not only that, the ram seems to push to all the corners of the earth. Who is this ram? Verse 20 tells us this. The ram which thou sawest that had the 2 horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. So now we know the identification. The 2 horns represent the kings of Media and Persia. The higher came up last, which symbolized Persia. Persia was first simply an ally of the Medes, but eventually came to dominate the kingdom. We also see the ram pushing in all directions, which symbolizes its conquest of the then known world. After conquering the 3 kingdoms of Lydia, Egypt, and Babylon, the later kings, especially King Ahasuerus, extended the conquests. The Medo-Persian Empire in the end consisted of 127 provinces which extended from India to Ethiopia. It was considered one of the great kingdoms. The Medo-Persian Empire never exceeded Babylon in glory and wealth, and it was inferior in that respect. Medo-Persia continued the principles of Babylonian worship. Let's look at verses 5 to 7. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west over the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had the 2 horns, which I saw standing before the river, and ran upon him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with anger against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Who is this he-goat? Verse 21 tells us, and the rough he-goat is the king of Greece. Also notice how fitting this symbolism is to the Greek kingdom. About 200 years before Daniel, the Greek people were known as the goat's people. Also, what is interesting is that Alexander the Great's son was named Alexander Agus, or son of the goat. Let's also further study the imagery seen here. Notice the goat comes from the west. Greece lay west of Persia and attacked from that direction. Notice that the goat did not touch the ground. This denotes the speed at which the Grecian power conquered the world. This is analogous to the leopard's 4 wings in Daniel chapter 7. And the rest of verse 21 tells us this. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Who is this great horn that comes out of the Grecian Empire? It is Alexander the Great. When we look at verses 6 and 7, we find a very violent scene of the Heot attacking and defeating the ram. If we look back in history, we find that the battles between the Greeks and the Persians were very fierce. Let's review some of the battles in history. At the battle in Phrygia, Alexander defeated the generals of Darius at the river Granicus. Then, at the passes of Issus in Cilicia, he defeated Darius and his army. Then, after Darius regrouped, he was defeated again on the plains of Arbela in Syria. This was the last battle, and Darius was killed. This was 331 BC, and with the king of Persia dead, Alexander the Great was victorious. Verse 7 shows the completeness of the defeat of Medo-Persia, with the Bible saying that the ram was cast down, and the 2 horns broken, and the body was stamped on. In history, we find that the Medo-Persian Empire was broken with its army scattered, the cities plundered, the royal city of Persepolis in ruins. By the way, Persepolis is considered one of the great capital cities of the world, and it is considered one of the wonders of the world today. Now let's look at verse 8. And the he-goat magnified himself exceedingly, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and instead of it there came up 4 notable horns toward the 4 winds of heaven. The kingdom of Greece becomes greater than the conquered kingdom, but notice something about the great horn. It is broken at the prime of its strength. Usually kingdoms are weakened by luxury, rebellion, or weak kings, but Alexander the Great is broken at his prime. Did the Bible predict that Alexander the Great would fall at his prime? Yes, if we look in history, we find that after conquering the world, he was celebrating, and he drank himself to death. After Alexander's death, the leadership in the country made Philip, his brother, king, and later they added Alexander's infant sons, Alexander Aegus and Hercules. Both kings, though, could not rule without help. Philip had a condition which prevented him from fully ruling, and Alexander's sons were unable to rule without help. So the advisors ruled the country. During the next 40 years, there was a lot of issues, and eventually the kings were all murdered. Then, the existing generals fought until 4 of the most powerful generals emerged and divided the kingdom, as the Bible says, to the 4 winds of heaven. As was discussed in Daniel chapter 7, they were Cassander, who took the west, Lysimachus, who took the north, Seleucus, who took the east, and Ptolemy, who took the south. The 4 regions known in order as discussed are Macedonia, Thrace, Syria, and Egypt. Can you see how accurately the Bible predicted the history of Medo-Persia and Greece? And as we move forward, connecting this prophecy with Daniel chapter 9, you will witness even more astonishing details and accuracy in Bible prophecy. That concludes our time together. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this nugget of prophecy. Join us next time as we continue our journey through Daniel chapter 8. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you again soon.